so we're gonna be going through this piece, and we're gonna do it like the last piece we looked at, and we're just gonna kind of go phrase by phrase, look at it, and then we'll have a summary video at the end. This piece is a little bit more complex than the last one, so you might start seeing the difficulty kind of increase with these pieces. And then also harmonically, there's a lot of things going on. We have polytonality, so we have polychords, we have dissonant bass chord, we have, I mean, those are the main two things that we have. And then we have chords. Well, we don't have too many. There are some chords from the diminished scale, actually. And then there are some other techniques. I mean, John Williams doesn't really use like all of his action techniques in this score, at least from what I've looked at. He uses polytonality, chords for association, right? Associating certain scenes with dissonant bass chords or polychords, and he uses that technique, which we'll look at. But something I'm realizing is I've never seen anyone talk about like harmonic exercises for film music. I haven't seen anyone talk about that, and I think that that's something that we can do here. In addition, because I was already planning on making like videos on harmony and harmonic exercises and just an entire course just on functional harmony, or just the basics, really, just to kind of help people out, and then make videos on it, make courses on it and stuff. But I'm realizing that a lot of the techniques here are more advanced, and so they could actually use a separate course. So once you understand functional harmony, which is the basics, right, you have to understand what a triad is. We have a triad here. This is a B flat minor triad. If you don't know what a minor triad is, and you don't understand like it's a pretty simple concept, right? You have a triad and you have all the inversions that you can put it in, first, second inversion, and then you have the seventh chords. As a concept, it's not very difficult. What's difficult is being able to look at a score and identify relatively quickly like what triad that is. And to do that, you need to use harmonic exercises, but there aren't too many of those around. And when I say harmonic exercises, what I mean is using a keyboard, or that's the preferable instrument because it has all of the notes. Using a keyboard to go through every single key and do the chords, and the progressions that you can do in all of those keys. Going through the circle of fifths motion, adding a flat for every key that you do, adding a flat, and then you go the other way, you add sharp. So that way you can basically memorize every single key, so that way when you look at a score, you're not confused. Because when you're looking at a score, like let's look at these first few measures here, and I'm sorry if this is kind of rambling. We'll get into the score eventually here. But as you can see, there's chords here. Now, if you're looking at this chord, now this is a sus chord, so it's a G, it's implied G minor, but it's sus2. We resolve to G minor, you could say, right here. But if those are things that you just cannot see and you don't understand, like this is the tonic chord, this is the root chord of the scale, this is the tonic chord, and then we have a E flat, so this is the third, right? So we go 1 3. And if you want strong, motion with the harmony, you could do 1 3, and then sometimes they'll do 6 2, so 1 3 6 2 5 1. That's counterclockwise on the circle of fifths, which is strong movement, right? That pulls towards the dominant, which, as you can see, we have a dominant chord at the end of the phrase. So that is a half cadence, right? And so these are things that you should already know. If you're going through these videos, those are things you should definitely already know. But if you're confused, that's what I was talking about. Maybe we could make some videos or courses. Now, we're obviously going to want to start with the basics, functional harmony, maybe some voice leading, and then part writing. That's the basics. So you can write something like this, because this first section really only uses functional harmony. It doesn't really use chromaticism at all. We're just using functional harmony, but the way that I orchestrate it makes it sound, and the parts that I write the part writing and the orchestration, and that kind of helps achieve the sound, right? So you have to learn the basics. You got to go through, you got to learn the functional harmony. And the reason I'm saying this is just because it's very important to do. You can't really skip it, because if you skip it, how are you going to understand any of the other stuff that comes later, like the dissonant bass chords, chromatic planing, modulation by thirds. It's already confusing enough, but when you add in the fact that you don't understand what all the functions of chords are, it gets confusing. And I'm not pretending like I know it all. There's still things that I can learn in that area. I mean, I understand how it works completely. Like, yeah, I understand how it works. I just need to go through and memorize it, so that way I don't have to think about it as much, because I can look at a score and I can figure out, okay, this is the tonic chord, this is the third, and then okay, so this is the chord progression they're using and stuff like that. I'm just saying, I'm trying to memorize it so I don't have to think about it, so I can focus more on the motifs and everything else, and I can just look at the harmony and say, okay, this is the harmony that's happening. Anyways, it's been 7 minutes, so let's get on with this. So I just slapped a title here. It's meant to resemble the score from The Last Jedi. Actually, if we're looking at the score, I'm gonna pull it up here. It's meant to resemble the Battle for Crait from The Last Jedi. If you saw that movie, the Battle for Crait from The Last Jedi, I think it's a pretty good score. It does use a lot of motifs from the trilogy, so it was, I don't want to say it was difficult, but I had to come up with my own motifs and melodies to make up for that. So we're trying to achieve the sound from the Battle for Crait from The Last Jedi, by John Williams here. And so the first thing, and I'm gonna hop into it because I've been talking a while here. Actually, before we do that, I just want to mention, be on the lookout for those courses. Be on the lookout for other videos that talk about the basics, because I definitely want to cover that. Chromaticism is going to be another big thing, and I'm going to start some series on these topics, and I might make some courses. Like, I think functional harmony most people should be able to learn that, like, for free. Like, that's not something that you should have to pay for. I think the exercises, if I make any exercises, I'll make a course for you guys, because that's going to help you memorize everything and you don't have to think about it. Because yeah, you can understand functional harmony, but if you don't memorize all the different keys using harmonic exercises, it's like, what's the point? You're gonna have to sit there and it'll take you a long time to figure everything out. But yeah, anyways, let's hop into the score. So this theme right here, this is what I started with. Okay, I always try to start with my theme. I might have actually put this ostinato down as well, but I like to start things out with the theme. So I started out with this theme right here, and it's very similar to the Force theme. It actually opens in G minor. So the original score, if you're looking at the Last Jedi score, it opens up in D flat minor. Okay, I chose G minor, no particular reason, but it is a minor third away from where we modulate to, which is B flat minor. So it works out because it's a chromatic mediant. In the actual score, it does it modulates to B flat minor as well. He just chose to start on D flat. I chose to start on G. I'm also more familiar with the key of G, but that shouldn't really be an excuse. If you're using harmonic exercises, you should be familiar with all keys. And so that's why it's important to do those. That's why we can make some courses or videos on that. And that's, again, very important, and I'm going to try and get started on that soon. But as you can see here, we have this theme. It's, again, very similar to the Force theme. In the beginning, it was inspired by that in the beginning, with this jumping up a fourth, starting on the 5th scale degree into the 1st scale degree, right? And then I just kind of made my own thing after that. So here, let's just play the entire phrase, I guess. We're not going to have the ostinato. We're just going to, well, I guess that would help keep the rhythm. I accidentally turned this to that. Another important thing to note is in the score that we're looking at, and the John Williams score, it's a lot shorter. I chose to make this a full phrase, and that's another thing, is you don't have to go exactly by what the composer does. We're just kind of using his score as a harmonic outline, just to kind of see, okay, what key does he start in, where does he modulate, and we kind of take those things, and obviously the techniques that he uses, the rhythms that he uses and stuff. Again, we took this idea of going from the 5th scale degree to the 1st, jumping up a 4th. So we're taking those ideas and kind of using them to help us create the score, but you don't have to make it rigid. You don't have to stick to it exactly. You can change things however you need to. So I chose to extend the phrase because I just felt like making it a full theme, but again, you can do whatever you wish. He had it so it was like 4 bars. So he had it like this, and then again, I chose to extend it to 8 bars, but you can do what you wish there. But yeah, really it's just, taking inspiration from the Force theme. And if you're having trouble with these melodies, again, it's really motifs, right? So dun 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 dun, dun. And then we just repeat it, right? We're repeating it, but it changes slightly on the second time around. We go up to this E flat, and we reuse the motif. So that's another thing, is sentence structure. Okay, if you don't know what sentence structure is, how are you going to make a melody? You're not really going to see that. So that's another thing that we can look at, is melody creation. I can make a video on that. So there's a lot of things that you should learn, but that's just that's essentially what we were doing there. So I came up with the melody first, right? And then we have some counterpoint here, just because I felt like writing it in. I just felt like that should be there, so I put it in there. It just kind of moves it forward, because as you can see, there's not too much going on down here. Like, it pauses for a little bit. And yeah, we do have the ostinato, but that alone isn't really enough, because it pauses, it has these gaps in it. So we needed something to kind of carry the harmonic rhythm here. So I just put this in, right? Just thought it would make, some things you can just hear in your head, and you can just put them in. So that's just a counterpuntal line, right? So I wrote the melody in first, then I put the harmony in, because if you put the harmony in first, I find it more difficult to fit the melody in it, and it also tends to sound like a chord progression, but that's up to you, right? I would recommend putting the melody in first. And then I put this ostinato. This just highlights the tonal center, which is G minor. Okay, so it's pretty basic. It's functional harmony, and if any of it's confusing, I could probably just make a separate course on how to actually learn functional harmony and how to apply it into a piece, so it doesn't sound like a chord progression. But yeah, those are things you should know if you're going through this series. Moving on, the song changes pace, okay? And this is the thing, oh, sorry about that. This is the thing about film music, is it's changing depending on what scene we're in, okay? So now we're in a scene where the resistance is getting ready to fight the First Order. So this first part was about an inspirational speech to get them ready to fight or whatever. You got to take out that last cannon or something. That's what he said, I think. And so after that, they transition into this section here, and they're getting ready. They're not necessarily fighting, right? But they're getting ready to fight. So it's harmonically, it's pretty basic. So we use a non-harmonic tone to build just a little bit of tension, right? This B flat to the B natural. The B natural is outside of the key. We're modulated into B flat minor, by the way. No preparation, okay? Because it's sudden. We don't need preparation. Now, you could say, okay, we ended on this B flat here, but this is, again, just highlighting the tonal center of G minor. So we're free to modulate into B flat because it's a third away. We're free to do what we want there. I would say just watch the voice leading. Make sure the voice leading makes sense. This A goes up to the B flat. That goes up, and then we also have a lower B flat, so it's kind of expanding. The chord is going from this compressed chord that's close together to this more expanded B flat in octaves, right? So it kind of fits. You can just see this fits this chord right here fits inside of this chord, right? So it kind of transitions nicely there. You want to listen to it, we can play it here. And it's supposed to be kind of sudden because the scene change is sudden, right? It kind of fits. That's what he was using in the score anyways to get that effect. And we have, of course, our classic pedal tone in the bass. That's what it's called, is a pedal tone when you're holding a note in the bass for an extended period of time. And right now it's B flat because, again, we modulated in a B flat. And I'm going to try my best to keep track as we go here, so we can put B flat minor up here so you can see that. And we modulated again from G, so we modulated up a third. And again, if any of this is confusing, I know I keep saying this, but I can make some videos on this. We got to make some videos or courses to help people that are struggling with that. So right here, what is this chord? It's just a B flat sus2, and then we resolve into a B minor chord, right? So yeah, it's just something that I thought would work. And then we do the same thing. So that's the harmony, right? This is just what's going on harmonically underneath the melody. This is the melody. This is some other concepts to take note of. Generally, now we're not really in action. Well, we are in action territory because we're preparing for the action. So just an important concept is you want to have a motor, right? So the motor currently is in the bass, but then we temporarily take over the motor with this, you could say, melodic rhythm. Not really melodic, but it goes up a half step to kind of create tension. It comes back down, right? So we have our motor, it's in the bass, and then we also have part of it up here, right? So that's another thing to consider. We have our harmonic, like you could call them stabs, harmonic stabs, because it's triads with short rhythm, and then they hold and then play another note there. So that's what I would call it, as harmonic stabs. I don't know, it's just a name for it, but you know, I like to do that. Well, at least that's what it was like in the score, right? If you're looking in the score, well, actually in the score he's playing the Resistance theme. So this is like one of the phrases, like, I could alter it and change it a little bit. Okay, that actually kind of sounds a little bit, like the theme when Luke is walking. Okay, anyway, let's just say this. What does he do? What do we modulate to? We modulate to F, which is up a fifth, right? Should have put that in there. So essentially we have the pedal tone and the bass. Now, why do we do this? This creates tension, right? So that's outside of the key, but we're mostly maintaining the tonal center. So this is the third, right? We're just going from the third, so we're emphasizing the part of the B flat minor chord. We're just going back down to the C, right? To just give it some kind of melodic interest. Then we go back down to the B flat. We have a non-harmonic tone just to give it a little bit of surprise and a little bit more interest, right? Because it's mostly diatonic in this first part. We got to give it some chromaticism to make it interesting at the end, right? These are things that you just learn to do, you know, as you compose. So you have to actually try this yourself to figure out what harmonic tones do I use. Now, there actually is certain harmonic tones you want to look out for, and I can pull it up here. I have a list here of the harmonic tones that I use. So if we're looking at we're in the key of B flat minor. So yeah, in B flat minor, what is this? This E. This is, you could say, flat 5 or sharp. So we'll call it flat 5, which gives it more of a dangerous, unstable type sound. Okay, so you just have to look at these color tones and their associations, and I guess that could be another like series or course that we could do, is the different color tones and their associations, and then the chords that go with those color tones, right? So that way when you're writing a piece, you can know like what color tones to use for the melody and what type of sound. Because if you don't know what type of sound it produces, it's going to be difficult to figure out like which color tone to use, right? And it's actually interesting because we take this little phrase here and we just modulate it up, right? We just modulate it up a third, and that's why chromatic, well, actually no, it's not up a third, it's up a fifth, which is or you could say down a minor fourth, or a fourth, not a minor fourth. It's down a fourth, right? Up a fifth and down a fourth are the same thing, but you could call it either one. So this is up a fifth. Now, why did he choose up a fifth? Why not up a third? Because up a fifth sounds more like it's progressing. It's more heroic, I guess you could say, because they're getting ready to go fight this like powerful enemy, and they're pumped up, they're ready to go. So they just had a heroic speech. So you have to kind of take into consideration, like, okay, why is he using a specific technique? And that's my interpretation of it. Of course, someone else could say something completely different, but I mean, that just from looking at it, that's what it looks like, right? I mean, they had a heroic speech. They're getting ready for battle, and you might as well modulate up a fifth to make it more heroic. And that's the thing about film music, is they don't have all these like strict rules saying you have to prepare by using the dominant 5-7 chord, the dominant seventh chord, and then lead into the next chord, or the next tonal center. Like, you don't have to do all these weird preparations. You can just modulate up when you're ready to. You don't have to prepare it. Now, sometimes you do. Okay, I'm not saying you never prepare it, but in this example where it's like action music, preparing for battle type music, you don't really have to prepare it. And so that's what you learn when you look at the score, when you look at the techniques that he used, and you realize these things. But that's just the situation that we're in now. The situation we're in now is we're doing more battle type music, and when you're doing that type of music, you don't need to really prepare the modulation. So moving on, anyways, I know it's a lot, but let's move on here. Now this is where it gets a bit complex, and I think we'll save that for the next video. Thank you for watching. It's going to get more complex here, and we'll continue in the next episode. We have a lot more to go through. I'm going to try and speed it up. I just had some things I had to get out the way in this first episode, but more will be coming soon, and we'll see you in the next one.